Banished from Sparta, he found that Sparta had not left him. Even beneath the refreshing sea breezes of the Peloponnese, he felt the insistent presence of Laconia's dry, still air, as if the silence of the place had permeated the depths of his mind. Evenings became feverish attempts to capture impressions in diaries, filled with contradictions and snippets of dialogue, yet every sentence broke off, unfinished. How could one articulate a city that balanced between life and death? A city that seemed to have lost faith in war, yet ceaselessly prepared for it. A city that held its tongue, yet answered every question. Upon his return to Athens, his colleagues met his accounts with restrained mockery. Sparta, some remarked ironically. They are merely shadows clinging to rocks. Others called it a living museum, a ruin too stubborn to fall. But he remained silent, remembering the eyes of an old man he had met in the baths. It was a gaze far removed from that of a ruin. That spring, he embarked on a journey across Greece, seeking the echoes of Sparta, not in armies or battles, but in its ideas. His discoveries were astonishing. In remote villages, he encountered young Spartans, raised by their fathers in a spirit of resilience and the ability to keep pain secret. On distant islands, he heard tales of discipline, of silence holding more power than words. They did not call it Spartan, for these principles were already deeply ingrained in their consciousness. However, there were darker aspects. In newly formed city-states, rulers used the image of Spartan control to justify tyranny. In military academies, young men were subjected to harsh punishments in the name of tradition. Among philosophers, the term Spartan became a tool, sharp, simple, and brutal, to win debates about the soul. It was then that the scholar realized Sparta had not vanished. It had dispersed, permeating the cracks of civilization not through military campaigns, but through memory, admiration, and fear. Months later, he returned to Laconia. This time, he was unburdened by scrolls, questions, or expectations. The city appeared before him as it always had, too ancient to change, too proud to offer explanations. The same weathered stones, the same olive trees bowing to the dust. But something had shifted. The old man was gone, the barracks empty, and the helots no longer flinched at the breeze. Something had softened, or perhaps simply surrendered. The silence remained, but it no longer pressed down, instead, it listened intently. He listened intently. The lone traveler made his way to the riverbank, a place where young athletes once enjoyed water sports after arduous training. Now, a silent atmosphere prevailed. Wildflowers adorned the banks, like vibrant brushstrokes on nature's canvas. The traveler sat on a stone, his gaze fixed on the setting sun, his mind wandering through the labyrinths of the past, an era he had never lived. Suddenly, he heard something. Not words, not footsteps, but rather a rhythm, muffled and even. Like a breath, like memories, like a city once ablaze with passion, now softly humming its tune in exile. Back in Athens, the stranger was transformed, though few noticed. He no longer raised his voice in heated debates, nor was he drawn into arguments about the definitions of courage or discipline. He simply listened intently. And when he spoke, each word was measured and significant, like a precious stone. He produced a book, modestly and without fanfare. The cover bore no title, only a symbol, a broken lambda, deeply incised into the leather. Its pages were not a history or a philosophical treatise, but rather a mosaic of fragments, observations, and untold stories. The Spartan boy learned silence, one entry read, but I wonder if it was taught, or inherited from the very earth. In this quiet volume, Sparta rose from the ashes of time, not through dates and names of generals, but through tangible details, cracked sandals, olive pits, blood on children's knuckles, the wind imbued with the scent of stone. He sent a copy of the book to each of those who had once mocked him. Most ignored his gesture. One returned the book with pages torn out. But one responded to his message. I embarked on a journey, the letter read, not to Sparta, but to my father's village. I watched the boys wrestle in the dust and did not stop them. I told my son a story of a place where silence was etched into boys. He asked me if it was true. I replied, yes. And then added, never again. The scholar could not hold back his tears, for at last, someone understood him. Years passed, empires rose and fell, borders were redrawn. But Sparta lived on, not as a military power, but as a legend. Travelers still visited its roads. Some sought ghosts of the past, others solitude and silence. Some knelt and kissed the ground where Leonidas once stood, others scoffed and said, "Is this all that remains?" But it did not matter. Sparta no longer required worship. It had transformed into something greater than stone, into a myth. Not a bedtime story, but something that hid within the walls of empires, shaping laws, tempering men, suppressing weakness. It became a symbol used by tyrants and rebels, generals and poets, those who sought conquest and those who wished to endure. Resilience. Amidst the ruins of a once bustling courtyard, where young warriors practiced with wooden spears, a solitary olive tree still stands tall. Its roots, like anchors, delve into the scarred earth. Its branches reach skyward, a testament to stubbornness, silent strength, and unwavering resolve. This tree is the living embodiment of Sparta. Yet the olive is not alone. Each year, wind and birds bring new seeds that attempt to take root nearby. Most are doomed to perish, the soil here is dry, and the shadows are cold. However, some saplings manage to survive, as if a reminder of an unyielding life force. One day, a girl traveling through these parts with her grandfather stumbled upon the ancient ruins. They had come from afar, guided not by maps but by old legends. The grandfather pointed to the hills where Spartan warriors once trained. The girl picked up a shard of pottery, shaped like the rim of a shield. "What is this place?" she asked. The old man did not weary her with historical facts or names of kings. Instead, he sat beside her and said, "This is a place where men became silence. Where silence became strength." The girl said nothing, but as they left, she tucked the shard into her coat pocket. Later that night, she began to write. She wrote of the wind, of the tree, of a stillness that felt heavier than stone. And she could not stop. From that single memory sprang poems, stories, and entire worlds where warriors uttered no battle cries, yet displayed incredible resilience. Meanwhile, far across the sea, in another country, a sculptor created a statue depicting not a soldier in the throes of battle, but a warrior standing motionless, shield lowered, eyes closed. Inscribed on the plinth were the words, "Strength needs no shout." In a bustling city of skyscrapers, a teacher told his restless pupils about Sparta. Not of battles and bloodshed, but of how the Spartans walked in silence, in formation, as if the very earth watched them. Some children laughed, others rolled their eyes. But one boy, returning home, discarded his fake awards and told his father he wanted to earn something real. Sparta transformed into something more than just a place or an idea. It became a question, posed not by words, but by people's actions when no one is watching. How they endure. How they bear pain. How they choose silence when words are powerless. And in every generation, this question arises again. Not loudly, but in quiet moments, on a cold morning before an exam, before stepping into the unknown, in the silence between heartbeats before speaking a truth that might come at a high cost. The question whispers, "Will you break?" And sometimes, someone answers, "No." Not because they were taught to, but because something ancient, deeply hidden within them, rises like a shadow and stands unyielding. This, then, is the true essence of Sparta. Not in blood, not in walls, and not even in warriors, but in the echo that outlived them. The city became a myth, and the myth, a mirror. And in this mirror, some see only violence, others silence. But only a select few can see themselves within it.